center. Where, which center are you guys at? Agnes, which center are you at? You can unmute.
Now I'm on the Baden.
That's okay. Which center are you at, Agnes?
Baden.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have sewing classes there?
I think it's like 1 year ago.
Oh,
I
okay,
was
yeah.
going
But
over there,
but you
and
did have sewing
I
classes.
traveled. When I came back, it was the pandemic. Everything was
Uh-huh.
crazy.
Yeah, true. How about Shanette? Did you which center are you from? By the way, your video is off. I don't know if you want it off or not.
Yes, I want it off.
Okay.
I haven't taken a sewing class, so I saw this sewing, so I said I just jump on.
Okay, great. Okay. Agnes, are you a beginner or are you an experienced sewer?
Beginner in between,
Okay.
because
All right. All right.
if
No
they
problem.
give me some direction, I can do something.
Okay. So this is a basic sewing 101 class, and we are mostly going to do the basics. So we're not actually, constructing a garment. But if you will have questions or want to know later about certain specific things, go ahead and ask me. Okay. All right. And then you can also review this again on YouTube. So and I think you just look up Fulton County Senior Services. That's the YouTube channel. All right. So I'm going to talk about the sewing machine today and needles, and maybe if we have time, we'll talk about the thread, okay? If you have a sewing machine, it's good to do some tests and samples on your own. You could do it with me if you want. Depends on, how much time we have. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to talk about the sewing machine. There's all kinds of sewing machines now out there on the market, but the basic principle is the same. You have all this stuff going on the inside, okay? So just keep in mind this, we call this the flywheel or something like that. That's the thing on the side of your sewing machine that you turn. I am going to, well, I can't see this at the same time. Yeah, I can't see it. Okay, so that's the thing that's going to turn. Your switch should either be on the side or on the back of your machine. There's also a place where you plug in your cords. And some machines have one plug-in spot, some have two. All right. And the very old machines might have an on and off switch somewhere on the bed. That's called the bed of the sewing machine. And basically it just a bunch of gears in here and turns it and makes the shaft go up and down, up and down. And what exactly happens, let me see if I can, oh, I'm gonna run this video in case you haven't seen this. This is really cool to watch. Let's see if I can do this. Okay, so what happens when a stitch is made on a sewing machine? Because it requires.
I'll show you how a stitch is made.
Yeah, it requires.
Okay, let's identify a couple of these key parts. This is the take-up lever. It moves back and forth. It releases the tension on the thread so that the bobbin hook can grab it and make a loop that goes around the bobbin. This is the tension. This is the bobbin. These are fabrics going through, and these are the feed dogs that are moving the fabric through. Each one of these is a stitch. The take-up lever brings the thread down as the needle plunges into the fabric. This releases all of the tension on the thread so that the bobbin hook can grab it and form a loop that goes around the bobbin thread. When that loop goes around the bobbin thread, the take-up lever moves up as the needle is coming up, and it tightens the bobbin thread up underneath of the fabric. You see how the feed dogs are pulling it through? That cycle happens for every stitch, and the timing and the tensions are totally important.
Okay, wasn't that cool? All right, so now let's talk about troubleshooting. When you have a sewing machine and you have all kinds of stuff happening, okay? Do you both have a sewing machine? Agnes, you have a sewing machine, right?
Yes, I have one, and I have just close to me.
Is it new or?
It's a border. It's like I bought it like 3 years ago.
Okay,
Mhm.
all right. And how about Shanette? Do you have a sewing machine?
And I bought mine,
You bought yours when?
I guess in 2019. I think it was either January.
Oh, okay. So you have a pretty good brand new sewing machine.
Yes,
Okay.
it's never
So
been used.
okay, so let me show you what's going to happen here. Let's see, how do I do this? Set up professional audio. I don't need that. Okay, I'm gonna see if I can show it to you with my machine. Okay, so here's my machine. Is it showing backwards? Wow, on my screen it looks backwards. Okay, so here is my flywheel on this part, okay? And this is gonna turn the shaft, which is this thing, up and down. My switch is on the back. My plug is here. And this is where you put your bobbin to wind it.
Mhm.
Let me see if y'all can see this pretty good. Okay. And these two pull up. If you have any questions during the process, please ask. Okay. Just butt in. So this is the bobbin winder, and this is where you put your spool of thread. All
Mhm.
right. On most machines, you're going to have a stitch selector.
Okay.
Okay, on mine, it's all preset. This is a manual machine. It's not computerized, and these are preset stitches. So I can't adjust the length of the stitch. It's just going to give me either short length or a longer length. Okay.
Okay.
In most cases, when you're doing basic sewing, you really probably are just going to use a 2.5 or a 3 length stitch. It doesn't really, when you get into fancy stitches, then you need to be able to have the minute adjustable lengths and all that. But for basic sewing, you really don't need anything but a shorter stitch and a longer stitch.
Mhm.
This machine also lets me do zigzag. So I can choose here which kind of zigzag, and it gives me options. It gives me a basic zigzag stitch, but if I want a long, zigzag stitch, I can, well, basically it just gives me a basic zigzag stitch. On my other machine, I have several machines, but I have a computerized machines, and I can minutely adjust the length of the zigzag in the width, okay? So this is just a basic one. It's just going to give me a basic one, and that's fine for regular sewing. It's also going to kind of give me a stretch stitch and some weird other kinds of stitches, all right? And then I can get combo stitches if I really want to get into it. These are basically for stretch knits, these kind of stitches. Stretch fabric, basically. You're also going to have, so you're just going to have this knob. Usually on sewing machines, you'll have a knob that makes you adjust the sideways stitch, and then you have a knob that's going to adjust the lengthwise stitch. Okay, so anyway, this machine I haven't used it in so long, so I just don't know what I'm talking about half the time, I think. Right here is your tension disc. Most of the time, you don't want to touch it. Okay, it also depends on the kind of fabric that you're using that's going to affect the tension. You always want to just leave it in the medium setting, which is around 4. All right. This guy is very touchy. You just don't mess with it too much and when you're first learning. Let's see, and then you have where you put the needle, and I assume everybody knows how to unscrew this and insert the needle, make sure it's all the way up, all right? And then you have the various presser foots. I've got a basic presser foot that has a wide thing, and usually you push a button and then your presser foot comes off. And then if you want to put it back on, you kind of like match up the notches, and then you want to lower your lever. You have a lever somewhere on the back, and it should snap back in there. Let's see if I can do this one-handed. Nope. Okay, it's not normally this hard. I just can't do it one-handed. Okay, here we go. Okay, sorry about that. Let me see if I can get this to stay. Okay, let's see. Okay, so it snapped when I lowered the lever. There's a lever either on the side or on the back of your machines. Some machines will have this guy, and this is for, this is supposed to be an automatic threader, and it's kind of, it takes a long time before you get the hang of it. So I'll show you how to use that. And most machines, you're gonna have a reverse button. You have to keep it down and then push the presser foot to keep it going. You can't just push it once, okay? You have to keep it down and it'll go reverse. Okay, on some machines, you're going to have a speed button. Just because the home sewing machine goes fast doesn't mean you should sew at top speed. Most of the time, if you keep sewing at top speed, you're probably going to snap your thread. It's probably going to break on you. So you kind of want to go medium speed or slow speed. On industrial sewing machines, you can go at top speed, but basically they're doing a straight stitch, and basically they're mass production machines. So they will have special pins on here that will help move the fabric at the same time. It's going at a super fast speed. Some quilters will have one of those industrial machines because they're always doing straight stitching. But on home sewing machines, try not to go at top speed. It's not good for you, and you get more accurate and clean, nice stitches if you go at a slower speed. All right, so we also need to talk about the problems we have when we sew, okay? So let me see if I can pull that up. All right, here we go. All right, now, a lot of times people will find that their stitches will jam. It's usually the thread that will jam and it'll make a nest or something. Okay, here's the troubleshooting. Most of the time, you didn't thread the machine correctly or something happened. So you pull out all your thread and you rethread it. Let me see if I can find that. You pull out all your thread and you rethread it, okay? And sometimes there might be a little notch on your spool and the thread is catching on it. And that can jam up your machine. All right. So you just have to, get used to rethreading your machine. And it becomes second nature. You might think, oh no, I have to rethread my machine, blah, blah, blah. But you know what? It just becomes second nature and just becomes easier. Now, you're not supposed to pull the thread out this way. You want to keep it going this way because there might be lint stuck in places. So you don't want it to, get jammed in there either. So you just you want to go one direction all the time when you pull out your thread. So I'm going to show you, it's really easy. You just go up, and if you don't have, some of the new machines will have arrows or directions printed on it, like this one does. It says go here, number 2, and I think it says number 3 up there. The older machines probably won't have that because it never occurred to anybody that, they should have easy directions. Okay, so I've threaded mine. Always check your manual for the correct threading. If you don't have it correctly thread, most likely your sewing machine is going to jam. Okay, mine has an automatic threader, and what it is you pull it down and then you hook it, and it's supposed to thread it. And so it looped and then it threaded it for me. So these guys are really nice to have. It's hard to show you right here. But if you have one of these, you're going to be frustrated at first. It's going to take a while before you get the hang of it, but they're very convenient. And then you want to put it, put the thread towards the back. So your number one problem when you have a jam is you got to rethread the machine. Is something happened or you have it on wrong? All right, number 2 most likely problem, you probably need a new needle. The needle might have gotten bent. The needle might have a nick in it. Maybe you hit a pin. And I'm going to show you a picture of needles here. These are microscopic needle pictures. And so here we have a brand new needle, and here it's getting worn out. See that little nick right there? And then see, this is really getting worn out. See all the little jaggedy things? Okay, and this one's just dead, okay? These are gonna give you problems. It's going to either snag your fabric, it's gonna jam your sewing machine. especially this last one. When I started sewing, so I grew up in Japan and I came to the States in 1972 and found out that at 4 feet 11, they don't make clothes in my size. So I had to learn how to sew real quick. And back then, I think I may have used the same needle for years, okay? And we didn't have all these different kinds of needles. Maybe a ballpoint needle got introduced later, but basically we only had just a regular universal needle. And also keep in mind back then, basically we only had like cotton, wool, linen, you know, the natural fibers. We didn't have that many synthetic fibers. We didn't have that many synthetic blend fabrics. So, you know, just a regular needle was fine. And it's just amazing that you could have sewn with one needle. Nowadays we have like polyester blends and all that. And those kind of fibers really wreck your needle. So it just shreds your needle. So needles are expensive, but you do need to get the proper needle, okay? That's going to be your number 2 problem for jamming. So change your needle. You're going to have to throw away that needle. Okay, the number 3 problem is you're just probably not using the correct type of needle. So we'll go over the different types of needles, but because we have like knit fabrics now and blended fabrics now and polyester fabrics now, rayon and all that, you really need to use the correct needle, especially microfiber needles, fabric, okay? Those really need a special needle. And denim, okay? You can't just use a regular needle on denim. You're gonna probably break your needle. All right, so you got thin fabrics like silks, and then you got the thick fabrics like denim. So, and then upholstery is like a denim fabric. It's pretty thick. Now, another problem is you got to check for lint. If you sew a lot, you must continuously clean your sewing machine. I use a brush, okay? Let me see if I can show you here. All right, stop share. All right. So you want to always unplug. All right. I'm not going to unplug mine because I have to show you with the light on. And then it comes with either this kind of screw or some kind of a screw. And there will be 2 screws on your throat plate, which you unscrew, all right? So you want to do this with the unplug just in case, you know, something happens and you zap yourself, all right? But I need this light on. I don't have any other lights, so I'm going to show you like this. All right. And it's a very small space, so it's hard to get to. So sometimes they'll just, sometimes you can use it like a dime or a small disc. All right. And this is the throat plate right here. And some machines will come with, well, let me tell you that this. In the olden days, you had a throat plate with just one little tiny hole. Okay, I don't know if you can see this. All right. But see, this was where the needle goes, and it's a wide one. Okay, most machines now come with this kind of throat plate. And the reason why is because I guess they don't want to give you another throat plate, but it's to accommodate like zigzag stitches because the needle has to go sideways, so it has to have that wide space. Okay. If you're sewing thin fabric, or if you want to do heirloom sewing, or you really want to be more precise, you really need a throat plate with one little hole, okay? And the reason why is because the, what do you call it? The fabric might get sucked into this big space, all right? So if you don't have a throat plate with a tiny little hole, what you can do is put Scotch tape, piece of Scotch tape over this, and then the needle will pierce the Scotch tape so that, and then the Scotch tape will keep the fabric from getting sucked into that big space, all right? And it might get a little bit sticky and gummy after a while, but you can clean that off. So here is the throat plate. What you want to do is like this machine, apparently I didn't clean it. So I had lint. What I do is I take like a paintbrush and then I try to clean all the lint. Let me pull this out. Okay, because this will cause your machine to jam, this lint. So I got lots of lint and I'll just turn it around. What you don't want to do is shove the lint, you know, into the machine, but you want to take it out. Now, and then you'll get a bunch of lint off of it. And on my machine, and on most machines, you should be able to access this. This comes off because they make it so that you can put like a sleeve in here, okay, get a tight fit. You should be able to access this part, which is the shuttle, okay? And then this is it's called the oscillating shuttle. And some machines you'll have it where it's from the top. You put the bobbin from the top. So I have this and I will have to clean that. I will need to clean, and on my machine, I can actually open this up and pull the shuttle, the whole contraption out like this. And I got tons of lint in here, okay? On the mechanical machines, not the computerized ones, but the mechanical machines, you need to oil any moving parts, and you need to use sewing machine oil, which is much more fine than regular, you know, like 3-in-1 oil. So if you can, buy yourself sewing machine oil. And if you use your machine a lot, you need to oil it. If you haven't used it in a while, you really need to oil it again and run it, okay? Because the oil might congeal in there, or lint and the oil might do a thing there. All right, so this one's a little bit tricky. I have to put it back in here like this. And then this guy's really dirty. I need to clean him and oil him. And then I have to put this back in here like this. And until you get the hang of it, it might be frustrating, and I don't know why I can't get this back in here. Okay, let's see what's going on. Oh, here we go. And then mine has latches, so it keeps it in place, okay? I got the old-fashioned kind of bobbin holder. Some of your newer machines, you just pop the bobbin in on the top. So if you have one of these kinds, what you need to do is your bobbin thread needs to come out this way. Okay, so it's coming out this way. So you hold it that way. And then this guy will be like this, and you pop it in, okay? And there's a notch right there. And then you make sure it goes in and it slides into that part. And your manual should show you that. Also, you can, if you don't have a manual, look at your model number on either on the side or the back of your machine, and you can Google it. And nowadays, most of the time, you can find your manual online, okay? And then on this guy, I have to pull this out because this little springy thing locks, I don't know if you can see it, okay? Holds on to my bobbin, okay? Otherwise, it's gonna fall out. Before I put it in, let me tell you one thing. This should come out pretty easily, okay? Not slip out real, but you know, not much resistance. So I'm gonna put this back in here. On these kind of machines, there's gonna be a notch right there where this whatever this thing that looks like, that sticks out, okay? And it should snap. And then you bring the thread up, you close it, all right? Now I need to put the throat plate back on. Okay, screw this back on. All right, do y'all have any questions so far? Am I confusing you really good? Okay, you have to do this maintenance, especially if you sew a lot or if you haven't sewn in a while. Otherwise, it's just going to be so frustrating. You're going to have jams, you're going to have thread breaks, you're going to have tangled up threads and things like that. All right? So don't mess with your tension dial, keep it on medium. You shouldn't have to mess with it. Your manual will tell you, you know, how to adjust your tension dial so that the top thread and the bottom thread will intertwine evenly. But that shouldn't be a problem if you have a new machine or, you know, if it hasn't given you any trouble. The newer machines are mostly made out of plastic, and the gears, if you sew a lot, the gears will wear out because even some of the gears are made out of plastic. So unfortunately, they might just last like 10, 15 years, depending on how much you sew. Okay. The old machines, they're super heavy, but they're made out of metal, and the metal gears and everything. So they do last a lot longer. Some parts do wear out, but if you have a lot of plastic on your machine, the plastic just wears out. So I'm going to thread this, okay? Each machine's going to be threaded differently. It's going to thread differently. Now, one thing you need to keep in mind, I don't know if you can see that little part moving, okay? That has to be up at the highest position if you want to thread your machine. And you don't thread it, most machines you don't like stick it in the hole. There's like a notch and you can just, you know, stick it through the notch. And you always have a, most machines are going to have another place you thread on the bottom, right before the needle. All this helps, you know, the thread move in easily. Let's see, and I can't see much anymore. So, okay, I'm not able to thread this very well. Okay, so I'm just gonna manually thread this. And you wanna cut the end of your thread because it's probably gonna be fuzzy in order to be able to thread it. Sometimes all this metal is so shiny that it reflects light and you can't see anything, okay? So, and then sometimes they sell threader and all that, but whatever. Okay, you got your bobbin thread in here and it needs to be cut. The bobbin thread needs to come up. So I'm going to hold on to, you got to hold on to your thread, okay? You push this, bring it down and it'll bring up the bobbin thread. You'll see it. I have it in red or pink or whatever that color is, okay? And it's come up. It's probably hard to see, but so you practice that several times. And when I taught at Benson, I made my students unthread their machine and rethread it about at least 10 times because then they get used to that movement and everything. Okay, so basically, let me go back to that page. So you have to clean your machine or else you'll have those jams, all right? All right, here we go. So we checked for lint. Now, remember I said the needle type is going to make a big difference, especially if you're sewing knits. Depending on the knit, you might need a ballpoint. I'm going to say you're going to need either a stretch needle or a jersey needle. And the reason why I say that is because I use the Schmitz brand needles. My machine, I don't use Singer machines. So Singer will have their own needles, I think, but I think you can use a Schmitz needle. If you go to the Schmitz website, they will tell you all kinds of information. Let me see if I can get, okay, here we go. Okay, so I use this brand needle. It is kind of pricey, but you can always hit the Joann's 40% off coupon or Notion sale and I stock up on those. Okay, it's worth it because they're about $5 something a pack. And remember in the beginning, I said that you're going to go through a lot of needles because you don't want to use the same needle forever. It will give you problems, especially if you're sewing fine fabric or knits. Right? So this is a jeans or denim needle and a pack of whatever it is. And each needle is going to have a number and I'll go over that. But Schmitz, I use these needles a lot, okay? And then here's another one. This one, I think, this one's a Microtex, okay? Needle, that means it's super sharp, okay? So I'll talk more about the needles. So your needle is going to make be an issue as far as if you get jams or problems, all right? So let's see, where am I? Okay. Let's see, hold and shift to select multiple windows. Okay. We went through the needle type. Now, if you're still having problems, check your bobbin, okay? you probably put it in backwards, or a lot of times what happens with me is I'll have a bobbin, but the other end, okay, so here's this end, right? Let me see if I can find one with the other end. Okay. So a lot of times, I'll have the thread end, but then I'll have the other end, the beginning of the, bobbin. Maybe it was too long and that gets tangled up in there or it causes a problem. So I need to make sure I snip that part. Okay. So that's another problem. And that one I have a lot happen to me. All right, and then we talked about there might be a nick in the top on your spool thread, and that happens to me also if I use like Coates and Clark thread, right? So far, do you have a question, any questions? Okay, you've got to do the maintenance, all right? The sewing machine, just because you put fabric in there doesn't mean the garment's gonna come flying out the other end, okay? This is just a tool, and no, it does not make coffee. And no, this is not, sometimes this part opens up and people think you're supposed to put M&Ms in there. No, you don't do that. Okay, so we talked about that. Now I need to talk about the needle types. If you go to the Schmidt's needle site, they'll show you the different kinds of needles they have. And theirs is color coded. It's real hard to tell what the colors are. Okay, so you'll look at the shaft right here. Let's see, where am I? Okay, they'll have different colors. And they'll have universal, stretch, jersey, jeans, I mean leather. They have a needle for every function. We have quilting, embroidery, metallic, top stitch. Top stitch is like, sometimes they sell that thread that's for denim pants, the orangey thread. So maybe that's top stitch or it's a thicker thread. What's that say? Embroidery spring needle. I have no idea what that is. That's for embroideries, I guess. Hem stitch. I have no idea why you need a hem stitch needle. Double eye needles. Those are fun. That's for heirloom sewing. And then quick threading needle. Oh, that must be a new thing. So, you can just slide it in the little notch. And then it looks like, they have specialty needles. These are for sergers. I have a serger and they require a different needle. It looks the same, but the shaft might be a little bit longer or shorter, okay? And the size is important. So let's see. So you need the right needle size. So I've got some that I have here, okay? Universal, basically for all, just regular, it's not super sharp. This one's really should be called micro text. I don't know why I call it micro sharp, but this one I use a lot because it really has a sharp point and pierces through. It's great for like faux suede, microfibers. Let's see what else. Sometimes I even use it for like just regular fabric, but I want a sharp piercing, I don't want a big hole. I don't want it to, but it might, because it's so sharp, it might actually cut your fabric. So I don't use it for knits, okay? Plus it'll give me problems on knits. So on knits, I use these two types. Apparently there's a difference, stretch or jersey. I think Singer calls theirs ballpoint, okay? I also have the denim, which is hard to find. I do have to get those online because they're hard to find. I do own embroidery and metallic and quilting. Metallic is for metallic threads. Metallic threads shred very easily, so the hole on the machine needle is a different size. And I think it's a lot larger, so it doesn't like shred. Embroidery, I think that's really for embroidery machines. I have some of that if I want to use fine rayon thread so that once again, it has a bigger hole and it goes through. And I think the point is sharper. If you go on the Schmidt site, they'll tell you what the differences are. And I don't know if I have any quilting needles, but I forgot what the reason for that was. I think the hole is bigger or something. I really don't know. I can't remember. So once again, we have these and each one will be color coded. Let's see. I'm going to go here. Okay, so they'll come up with all these numbers on their needles. The packets will have two numbers usually. It has a bigger number and then what do you call it, slash, and then a smaller number. I always look at the smaller number because I really don't know what the bigger number is. The number on the left-hand side. So I look at the number that's after the slash, and the 7/8, which are kind of hard to find in the stores. You might have to go online. It's really for fine fabrics like silks, real sheer fabrics, real fine fabrics. So, and they're usually, I think they're usually a universal type. I'm not quite sure if they come in different types. Now, the medium sizes are the 9, 10, 11, 12. What you have to do is always do a test sample when you sew. You just don't like stick a needle in there and start sewing your fabric. You always have a fabric swatch and test, test, test. See if you like your stitching, see if you need to adjust the length of the stitching and things like that. You just don't, throw it in the machine and go. So these are the medium sizes. Now, when you start getting thicker, like maybe 2 layers of linen, you might need a number 14, okay? Once again, you have to test, because each fabric's going to be different. And like I said before, nowadays we have so many different kinds of fabrics. Some are like loopy, some are bumpy, some are textured, some are brocades. So probably brocade cloth, you need a number 14. Okay, denim, you're either going to need a number 16 or number 18. These are hard to find, okay? Sometimes you'll luck out on a sale and find these, but I think somebody else has gone to the store and grabbed them before you because they're hard to find. And these are the thick denim fabric. Now, just because you're sewing with a thick denim needle doesn't mean you just go at top speed and, you still have to go slow. You still have to be careful because your fabric is so thick. Your needle has to pierce through all those layers, okay? So do we have any questions so far? Okay, on the knit fabrics, usually they run in this range, okay? I haven't paid attention to my knit needles. I usually stock up when there's a sale on needles that I normally use. The knit needles are kind of hard to find. I did order denim needles, and this one, it says $4.25, but you have to include shipping, okay? And the number on the denim needles are usually, let's see, this one says 100/16, okay? I don't know where I got 18, but I swear I saw 18 ones. All right, let's see. I just talked about needles, didn't I? Okay. We're going to, all right, here we go. So they come in a packets like this. You slide this down on the Schmidt needles, okay? And you bend it over. The numbers are going to be on the shaft of the needle. And there's no way you can see that. You need a magnifying glass. And then this is a microtext. It's a number what? Oh, number 10. Okay. And they say that the plastic is supposed to be a magnifier, but I don't think that works. I don't think so. You just need a magnifying glass. And I just have one of those loop-like things for jewelers. It's like a 7 times magnifier or something. Okay, so this Microtext sharp needle has a blue coloring. And let's see if we can see this. Okay, you see that dark blue, navy blue on there? That's and then the number will be written here. Now, all needles will have a flat side on the back and then rounded side. The flat side usually goes again, it goes towards the back. And you got to make sure it's in there really good. And then you got to make sure your screw is tightened up really good. All right. Now, let's say you were sewing a bunch of different fabrics and you went through different types of needles and, you know, and you don't want to put it back in your packet because you know you use that needle. So what you want to do is make yourself a pin cushion. And do you see the numbers I write on them? And put it back in those numbers. Okay. You might not know if it's a jersey or a microtext or a denim, you know, but at least you know what number it is and you don't have to string. And sometimes you can see the color. This one is, I don't know what that is. I think it's a universal. I think universal doesn't have a color. I think the stretch needles have a yellow, but like I said, these colors are hard to see. I mean, they really need to blob a bigger color. Oh, here's one that's yellow. So I believe the yellow is, and you can see, I don't know if you can see. Yeah, kind of, you can see. It's got a slight yellow color and that's, and I probably have it in the wrong place. So you want to make yourself a little, do y'all know how to make one of these? You just take 2 pieces of wool, stitch a circle. Okay, I use the lid of, you know, like a yogurt tub or whatever I bought, trace it, and then make a little opening, okay? I use pinking shears to cut the seam, trim down the seam allowance because, you know, so you don't have to snip those little snips into the seam allowance. And I turned it inside out and I stuffed the heck out of it with wool thread. Some people said walnut shell, sharpen your needles. So you could use that. Don't use polyester because polyester is going to dull your needles. So you want to use something like wool. I just take wool yarn, 100% wool yarn, chop it up into little bit, and you really, really have to stuff it, okay? And then you sew up that little opening, and then all you have to do is take embroidery thread or some kind of floss and just wrap this around, stitch it in, wrap it around, stitch it in, wrap it around, stitch it in, real tight, and it becomes like this cushion-like thing. And I just have a button there, okay? So the reason why I have this cardboard is just in case it goes all, I don't want to poke myself in case it comes out the bottom. And I just took a Sharpie and wrote the numbers, that's all. Okay, so this is kind of handy to have. So when you're sewing, you can just easily, and these are for needles that you've used. Okay. So the universal needle is really for basic sewing. Like I said, I use the Microtext a lot because I know it makes a nice, clean, sharp hole in my fabric. Let's see what else. Yeah. So this class is 2 hours long. Shall we take a 10-minute break and then come back and we'll talk about threads? And if you have any questions, you can ask me. Is that okay? You want to take a 10-minute break? Okay.
Okay.
So Okay, are we back?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yes.
so we were talking about the needles, and I found this one says, so Schmidt calls it Jersey ballpoint. This packet does have different sizes. It has 10, 12, and 14 sizes. So you can find one with just the one size, like let's say you're making a whole bunch of garments and it's the same type of knit fabric. So you can get a pack of just one size, or if you're starting out, you might want to get different sizes. So once again, you sign on to Joann's and the Joann's fabric store, and they will notify you of sales, and you want to stock up on these when they go on sale. Okay. I need to talk about a little bit about bobbins. I forgot to mention. Your machine uses your type of bobbins. So this is a gentleman, and I have to get gentleman bobbins. There is a slight difference in the height of the different bobbins. So I also have a brother sewing machine. So it's really hard to tell, but there actually is a difference in height. Okay, one's like maybe like 1 millimeter or 2 millimeters taller or something. And then some of the fingers are bigger too in circumference. Now, the very old machines will use the metal one. And I really don't know if you can use these for the modern machines or not. Okay, but now everything's plastic, but the old metal machines might use these guys. You have to get the right bobbin for your machine. It sort of does so with the wrong bobbin, but especially if you're going down smaller, but a lot of times it'll jam on you. I actually have a bobbin box, and it is a mess, but it keeps all my bobbins in here. Okay, and it's just foaming, just squished in here. You don't have to have this, but it kind of helps. All right, so you must have the right bobbin for your machine. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about feet. You didn't know that modern sewing was this complicated, did you? In the olden days, we had one needle, one or two feet, and that was about it. You want your basic foot, okay, which is probably this kind comes with your machine. All right. Okay. If you're doing a lot of fine sewing, either put the Scotch tape, or you can buy you can buy a foot that has a small opening, it's just a slit. Okay. You can either buy your brand sewing machine foot, okay, or you can buy a generic. If you buy a generic, you have to pay attention to, this is called a shaft right here. Sometimes you can get one with adjustable shaft, but anyway, there's a screw right here, and this shaft comes off. I think on there's some Singer models that have a slanted shaft. All right, I don't know why they made those, but most of them are up and down, but some are shorter and some are taller, the space. So you need to find out if that foot requires a shaft, or that foot will fit your machine. So if you try to buy it online, usually it tells you what machines it fits, okay? If you go to a store, you kind of have to go to a specialty sewing machine store. If you go to Joann's, they're probably not going to know, okay? And I didn't even know if they had feet at Joann's. Okay, you probably have to go to like Ashby Sewing in Kennesaw, or I forgot what the name of that sewing machine store down south was, okay? And then I think there's one somewhere off of Piedmont. Okay, you can look online for this. So basically, all you need is, if you only have just a few feet, basically you need this guy, okay? Because you can always put Scotch tape on your throat plate to make that little skinny hole for fine fabrics. You need a zipper foot if you decide to put in zippers, okay? My machines come with a zipper foot, but I like to use this. I don't like my machine's zipper foot. It's too wonky and moves around. Even on my computer, So I use this one, I think it's a generic one. And the cool thing about this is it has this part. Let's see, yeah, this part. So I can loosen the screw and I can slide it. So if I want to stitch on this side of the foot, or if I want to stitch on this side of the foot, and I can adjust how far away from the zipper. Okay, especially if I don't have a sewing machine that can adjust the needle position. Okay, so some of your basic sewing machines won't have that needle position adjusting thing. Computerized machines will let you move your needle position usually. So this one's important. Let's say you decided you like invisible zippers on garments. You've got to get an unzippable zipper attachment thingy. Okay, you have to have one of these because it's a different process of inserting a zipper. And so, you know, that's a whole nother story, zippers, all right? So those are basically the feet I use. If you're a quilter or do a lot of applique, you're gonna need something like this, maybe, okay? It's translucent, okay? But it has, you know, it has that open toe right there, and it kind of like has a groove on the bottom. Because on applique stitches or satin stitches, there's zigzag stitches like this. So you have like a hump, right, on your fabric. So it helps move the hump through it easily. And you can see where you're going. So a lot of these you can just, if you go to a sewing machine store, they have generic ones that might fit your machine. One foot that I really, really like, and in the sewing world, we call this the skating foot. It's got, on the bottom side, it's got this little piece of metal that sticks up, okay? All right, so what happens is you put the metal, let's say you sewed something, and you open it up. Let me see if I have something here. And you want to sew, let's see. Okay. So let's say you have this, okay, you sewed right here. And you wanted to do a nice, either an edge stitch or a top stitch, okay? The skating part, the metal part that sticks out, holds on to that edge of that fabric. Okay, so you can do it accurate. So I do like this. So this is an extra. All right. So do you have any questions about the feet? On your machine, you have this thing called the feed dogs. They're those jaggedy teeth-like things. That's what moves your fabric through. When you're sewing, do not pull your fabric through. Let the feed dog move the fabric for you. Some fabrics are gonna like not move, okay? Especially if you're sewing leather, you've got to have like special feet, Teflon feet or rolling feet, so that because the leather grabs the metal and it doesn't move. So some fabrics won't move, but usually, generally, you don't want to pull it through because you'll bend your needle or you'll jam something. But you do want to guide it because it might wiggle on you, okay? You want to guide it, but you let the machine sew for you, all right? So these are called the feed dogs. Some machines, you have a place when you take this out where you can lower the feed dogs, these jaggedy things. It'll go under the throat plate so it doesn't move your fabric forward. Those are great if you're doing free motion, you know, stitching, or if you're quilting, doing free motion quilting. Mine doesn't. Mine's just a really basic machine. So let's see. So let's just say you forgot you lowered your feed dogs and you go back to sewing, and your fabric's not moving. Check your feed dog. Okay, it's just a little switch that either lowers it or raises it. Mine doesn't do that, so I'm stuck with the feed dogs being up. Let's say I wanted to do free motion embroidery and the feed dogs in the way. I might be able to put like tape over the feed dogs, okay, and get away with it, but probably not. There might be a way to do it. So those are usually for quilters or people who do free motion embroidery or something like that. It's a whole different story. All right, so we talked about the feet and the feed dogs. Let's see, what else do we need to talk about? All right, I need to move on to, let me just quickly talk about scissors. You really need to keep your fabric scissors for fabric. You use this on paper, it's going to dull your scissors, and that's it. My favorite is these fist guards, okay? And I'm sure they make them different, but they have micro teeth. I don't know what they're called. Maybe they have a name. This one's called razor edge. What it is you can't see it, but they have little jaggedy serrated edges. So it grabs the fabric, especially slippery fabric, okay? And it doesn't scoot your fabric away so you can cut. I like these a lot, and they're lightweight, okay? I used to use these, the Ginger scissors, you know, and they had the micro teeth also, all right? Now the scissors are going to come different ways, you know, let's see how this one's angled, okay? So you can cut. But nowadays we use the rotary cutter. You just have to be careful, and you have to have a rotary cutter mat. And if you hit a pin with that rotary, do you guys know what a rotary cutter is? Do I need to show you? You want me to show you? Okay, let me show you just in case. Okay, you have to have a cutting mat. All right, so this is a rotary cutter. The blade is extremely sharp. All right, and when you press on it, the blade comes out. All right, see that? Oops. Yep.
Excuse me.
Uh-huh.
I have a question. Can you use it for anything? Because I have one like this is for the quilting.
For the what?
The quilting?
Oh, quilting. Yeah, quilters
Yeah.
do a lot. They use the ruler so you don't, you know,
Yeah.
mess up, and then, yeah. So you do a lot of quilting.
Yes.
Oh, that's good. So yeah, most everybody uses these now. Okay. The only problem is that the blade is expensive, especially if you hit a pin, you know, it nicks it. You know, like I said, always buy these when they're 40% off, or use a 40% off coupon. The blades do go on sale. There's different sizes for different rotary cutters. You have to have that rotary cutter mat, okay?
Yeah, yeah.
You do have to always remember that your hand is never in front of your cutter, or else you will cut yourself, okay? That's really important because these are super, super sharp. But it's really great with garment sewing, you know, where you have curves. Because when you try to do that with the scissors, you know, the fabric gets moved around. So these are really great, and they're fast too. So most people use these nowadays. You know, you still need scissors, but for cutting fabric out, most people use these. You have to have that mat. And you know, like I said, always get everything on sale. So sign up for that Joanne's email. I forgot scissors. Okay, so I like these, okay, because they're really super sharp. And sometimes you need the snips, all right? And a student gave me this snip because it has a spring on it. Very sharp, and it's great. Because if you snip a lot, you know, your wrist starts to hurt. So a spring one's pretty good. The only time I probably use pinking shears, remember in the olden days when they said when you make clothes and you finish off the inside of the thing with pinking shears? Well, we don't do that anymore, okay? The only time I use the pinking shears is if I make something that's curvy and not a garment, okay, but like a craft thing, like I did with like a curved part. So I'll just cut this because, you know, when you have a curvy part, you're supposed to snip, you know, and that's tedious. So I just use the pinking shears, and then when you turn it out, you know, you can get that nice curve like this, okay? So that's what I use. There's all kinds of ways to, you know, do all kinds of different things, but this is just one of the easy ones. And I use this when I don't see the seam. I mean, I don't see the inside, you know, it's enclosed, all right? Does that make sense? All right. Okay, I think we also need to talk about thread, okay? Nowadays, you have all kinds of threads. You have cotton thread, you have silk, you have polyester thread, polyester covered with cotton. You have nylon thread, rayon, metallic, okay? But for sewing, you want to get the best thread you can afford. do not use old thread. Those will probably be dry rot. You just spent a lot of time making something, and the last thing you want is the thread to expire and your piece fall apart. For example, I bought some hand towels or something from IKEA. And I like the towel and everything. I like the color and everything. But after washing a couple of times, this was, I think it was stitched in India or Bangladesh, and the thread quality was not good. So all the hems came out. The thread just dissolved. Okay. So you want to use the best thread you can afford. And threads are expensive. My favorite is Mettler, that brand. Let me see. And the reason why I like Mettler, all right, so this is Gutermann, okay? And it's like a German name. I like the Gutermann, okay? But I like the Mettler better. Mettler's going to be a little bit more expensive for me, and they usually, I don't think they usually come in huge spools anyway. So thread is expensive, and on these guys, this part kind of pulls out, and then you can put your thread in, you know, the end in there, all right? I like these, and if you look at microscopic images of threads, the cheap threads will be real hairy, you know, and so all that lint gets accumulated into your sewing machine. My computerized machine will not sew with coats in color. It will jam because the thread is too hairy for that machine. But these are my two favorites. They are expensive. I do buy them when they go on sale. Sometimes it's like buy 3, get 1 free and everything, so I stock up. So let's say you don't want to get thread for a color thread for every color fabric you have. What you can do, let's see if I have it here. Okay, depending on what you're sewing, okay? But what you can do is you can buy black, you can buy white. And then I always buy light gray and a darker gray. Because if you have color fabric, usually these don't show up in the seams. You can get away with a lot, okay? So light colors, darker colors, all right? Let's say you're sewing a lot of black fabric and you can't see your black thread, like if you have to like rip out the stitches or something. Use navy thread, dark navy thread, okay? So dark blue thread. Then you can see your stitches better, but it won't be obvious on your black fabric, all right? So don't use thread you've had in your drawer for like 30, 40, 50 years. They're not worth it, okay? They will fall apart on you. Now, there's also Serger thread. Don't use Serger thread for sewing on your machine. These are probably very hairy, and they're only like 2 or 3 strands, meaning they're not really strong enough or thick enough for the sewing machine. I mean, you can if you're desperate, but I wouldn't recommend it. There's also rayon thread. These rayon threads are basically used for embroidery machines. So if you have one of those computerized embroidery machines, you're going to have to get like, I mean, a million colors of rayon thread. They have a sheen, okay? And some come variegated. Okay, so if you're doing top stitching, sometimes it's fun to use these because then you'll get the different colors as you go. They're really decorative threads, so I wouldn't use it to like stitch a garment because then you can't see all this pretty color. And then remember, you have to use a special needle. Sometimes if you use a needle and your machine jams or the thread keeps breaking, these break easily. Then you have to change the needle. I have to change it to probably a metallic or embroidery needle, which the eye of the needle is bigger. And so it doesn't have too much tension on it. Metallic threads. These are really fun to sew with, but they're you have to go real slow.
And I mean, I have to go real slow, and you have to use a metallic needle. They do kind of tear easily too. Basically, it's just like metal aluminum foil wrapped around a core thread. Then once again, I think, let's see, what is this? This is 80% rayon and 20% metallic. So once again, it's in the rayon category, metallic category, but it makes beautiful color on the top stitch. Now, when you're sewing knits, and if you go on websites, and people will start talking about woolly nylon thread. A lot of people will use this, you know, on like t-shirts, you have that double stitching. What they'll do is they'll use a twin needle, okay, to do that pretty top stitching. But in the bobbin, they will use the woolly nylon because it stretches, all right? So the bottom is going to look like a zigzag on the other side, but the unfortunate thing about this, you have to hand wrap it around your bobbin. You can't put it on your machine and wrap the bobbin. It just goes around, okay? So that's called woolly nylon. All right. There's also, let's see, what do we have here? Oh, here's a fun one. Maybe quilters use this for applique. It's called the vanish thread. You stitch with it, and then you soak it in water, and the thread disappears. So don't make swimsuits out of this, okay? Don't use this thread for swimsuits. That'd be a disaster. But the way they use this is if you want it like really pretty scallop or some kind of an applique, you know, shape, you would stitch 2 fabrics with this thread, okay? You would stitch it out. You would, you know, maybe pinking shears cut it. You would, let's see, where'd that go? Okay, so I have the applique fabric here, and then I have the helper fabric, and I would turn it inside out. I would press it really good, and then I think you spritz it, I'm not sure, or you soak it carefully. Maybe the steam iron dissolves it, but it comes apart, okay? And then you have this perfect curve that you could put on your quilt or whatever and applique around it. So it's just another helper thread. I've never tried it, but that might be fun to try. Okay, and then you have, oh, this is shirring thread, I think. Yeah, I've never used it. Okay, so this one, it's basically a thin elastic thread you can use in your machine. You use it both on the bobbin and the top, and you sew it through the machine, okay? You just sew your garment. And because it's going through all the tension, it gets stretched. And then when you take your fabric out of the machine, the elastic shrinks back. So you have that little shirring, you know, the tiny little gather like thingies. Okay, so it's more of a decorative stitch, and it doesn't dissolve or go away, so it stays in there until the elastic gets out. So they have all kinds of specialty threads. I haven't really used them. Okay, so any questions on thread, scissors? We're okay with that? Okay, any questions on feet? All right, one of the things I'm gonna highly recommend, when I first started sewing, you know, we didn't have the internet and everything. So I just got a basic sewing book, and I just read as much information as possible. I made a million mistakes. I practiced as much as possible. Nowadays you have the internet, so you have access to YouTube videos. You also have access to sewing forums, you know, where you just Google sewing forums and people talk about techniques and give you hints and everything. One of the books that you might want to have if you're going to do like different kinds of sewing is Sandra Bezzina's book, and it's called Fabric Savvy, okay? There's like I think there's like 3 editions. You don't have to buy the newest, latest one. The original one is fine. You can buy them used now, so you can probably pick them up really cheap online. This is an awesome book because it will tell you, it will list the different kinds of fabrics that you might have and you might not know what kind of needle size to use. So it'll tell you what kind, for example, this one's faux leather. It'll tell you about the facts, and then it'll give you sewing tips or what kind of garments you should use it for or projects. It tells you whether you need to pre-shrink or not. Most fabrics you need to pre-shrink either in the wash or soaking or steaming. It tells you about the layout because some fabrics, you know, have a nap. That means it goes in one direction. It tells you what kind of markers to use. Okay, how to cut it, and it says rotary cutter or scissors here. What kind of interfacing? That's the things you put in between to stiffen places up, like the collar and the cuffs and maybe the front. It tells you what kind of thread to use, okay, and what needle size and what needle type, right? And it tells you stitch length. And this one says 2.5. Usually in garment sewing, we use 3.5. What about in quilting? What length stitch do you use, Agnes? Is it 2.5 or 3?
What did you say, please?
When you do quilting pieces, what size length stitch? How long are your stitches? Are they at the 2.5?
I really stitch because I have the scissor with the scissor you show, and when I'm cutting, is already make the edges. I don't.
Oh, you're talking about the seam allowance, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm talking about when you sew the stitch length. Do you know?
Oh, no.
Probably 2.5, yeah. And then it tells you what kind of press to put. So on this faux leather, you have to use a Teflon foot. Otherwise, your fabric's going to get stuck in the machine. It won't slide through. Okay. Sometimes if we have like when you sew vinyl, if you decide to sew vinyl, you have to put tissue paper on the bottom, and sometimes you can just put tissue paper on the top so that it goes through the machine. And you will have to tear the tissue paper. So there's all kinds of tricks, you know, that you can learn from being on those forum sites, sewing forum sites. And it tells you what kind of seam finish, okay? So you sew and you want to finish the seam on the inside. You don't want it to be ugly, right? And hairy, okay? And pressing is very important. When you sew, you have to press as you sew. Otherwise, you're not gonna end up with nice finishes, a nice end product. So it tells you what kind of iron to use, okay? What setting, whether you need a press cloth or not, whether you need to do both sides or use a steam setting, okay? So it has all this information. And then if you want to do top stitching, it tells you what length stitches and all that, and what kind of snaps, zippers, or buttons you should use, and what types of openings for those buttons, and what kind of hem. So this is a very, very good book. And so here's Guatemalan cotton, and then it even goes on to sweater knits. So let's say you went to the Goodwill store and you found a sweater you liked, but it was too big, or you wanted to combine a couple of sweaters and cut them up and make a jacket or something. You know, it tells you how to do all that. Look at that, okay? And on this one, it says to use a walking foot. You don't have to get a walking foot, all right? It just makes it a little bit easier. There are tricks to doing knits on the sewing machine. And we can talk about that later, but so, and it tells you what kind of hem, how to do it and all that. So I highly recommend this book, okay? So once again, it's Sandra Bitsina. The first edition doesn't look like this. This is a different cover, but it's called Fabric Savvy. Very good reference book. Claire Schaefer, she teaches at university. She has a book, but it's like an encyclopedia, and you have to read so much and everything. It's great if you're going to be a professional or if you're a student, but this one is for like easy reference, you know. Oh, you got some cool fabric. You want to hurry up and sew it. So you just kind of like look on it and things like that. Now, it also tells you in the back, let's see. Okay, so on the back, it tells you what kind of seam finishes you might want to give it, okay? Some machines will do this kind of stitches. I don't do these kind of, I personally don't do those kind of seam finishes, but it'll tell you all kinds of seam finishes. Here's another one right here. You know, some you might want to do it on with a machine. Okay, more seam finishes. Okay, and even let's see, fake flat felt. Oh no, seam and beaded fabric. Let's say you sew beaded fabric. You can't just sew beaded fabric. There's a whole trick to sewing beaded fabric, and sometimes after you sew it, you have to sew back some of the beads that you had to cut out because they won't go through the machine. All right. So, and then there's like details, what to do to make your garment look professional, done, so it doesn't look, you know, homemade. Closures, okay, all kinds of closures. And then we have a whole section on zippers. You can actually hand install a zipper. This is called a hand pick zipper. In couture sewing, that's the high fashion sewing, they don't use a sewing machine. They might have a sewing machine in the corner of the room, but everything is hand sculpted, hand sewn. Okay, so just keep in mind, but this is basically machine. And then hems. All right, let's see what else do we have. Okay, this page is really cool. Where am I? So modern sewing, you just have so many options, so many things to think about. This is about determining fabric content. Somebody gave you some gorgeous fabric, or the American Sewing Guild, that's like a whole organization in this country, but each state has a chapter. So Atlanta has the American Sewing Guild Atlanta chapter. Once a year, they will sell fabric donated by its members and other people at a very, very low discount. It's going to happen in August. I don't know when the date is, but you go there, it's going to be $1 a yard, $2 a yard, $3 a yard, tons of fabric. I'm not going because I donated a ton of my own fabric and I don't want to see it and buy it back. So let's say you went there and bought some fabric you liked, you know, it's a good time to go and buy fabric and then try out different fabrics, you know, because it's so cheap. If you don't like it, you can toss it or do something else with it. But you might buy some fabric, you don't know if it's polyester or if it's rayon or if it's silk. This is called a burn test. You take a match or a lighter, go outside, don't do it inside, and you burn a little piece. And it tells you if it's, let's say if it's acrylic, okay? After the flame goes out, it says melts under the flame and keeps burning after flame is removed. Leaves a brittle black bead, has no smell. That's interesting about acrylic because with polyester, it burns slowly, trailing black smoke, leaves a hard black bead. Oh, it says polyester has no smell. Okay, where's a stinky fabric here? Here. Okay, acetate. Melts under the flame and leaves a brittle black bead, smells like vinegar. Okay, have you guys burned wool? If you burn a piece of wool, it's going to smell like burnt hair. It stinks. Okay, along with silk, smells like burning. So it tells you what kind of ash is left. For example, on cotton, it burns quickly with a yellow flame and continues burning after the flame is removed. Okay, leaves soft gray ash. Smells like burning paper. So you buy some fabric that you don't know what it's made out of, you can do a burn test. Now, fabrics that are blends, like poly cotton, you're going to have two things happening. If it's more polyester, you're going to have the polyester result. If it's more cotton and a small bit of polyester, you're going to get, it's going to lean towards the cotton, but you're still going to get that strong polyester beading, okay, and melting. Let's say you made a beautiful skirt, but you have to line it because the fabric was kind of fragile. It tells you what kind of linings to use, all right? Then it goes on to the home deck fabrics, okay? And then it even gives you a page on stain removal, all right? And then, of course, the glossary, if you don't know what some of these terms are, all right? So this is a very good reference book that you should pick up secondhand, and it's gonna be really helpful learning about fabrics and all that, okay? Any questions so far? We're okay still? Okay, now, marking. We didn't talk about marking. You can use chalk. I don't think anybody uses that charcoal paper anymore. Maybe applique people, if you make appliques. Somebody told me, and the quilters are always coming up with cool ideas, but they said, you know, the children's washable markers, felt tip markers, are really good. So you don't have to buy expensive markers because you know how they dry out. You can use those. On dark fabric, I like to use the Clover White Ballpoint, or I'll use chalk. Most of the time on garment sewing, I'll use chalk. Let's see, what else? They do have all kinds of markers, but you know what? I think I would lean towards the chalk and also the children's washable felt tip markers. I mean, don't use like a dark color on the white
How
fabric.
about this? The crayon, the white crayons.
What kind are they? Hold on, let me unpin myself real quick. Let's see how to remove pin. Okay. All right, let me pin here. Let's see if we can get a close up of that. All right, bring it up to the camera. Let me see, Agnes.
Is it
Agnes,
white crayons?
I'll put it up towards the camera. I can't see it. Do you know where
Can
your
you
camera?
see?
Do you know where your camera lens is? On the computer. It's on the top usually. There's a
yeah,
little light.
yeah. Let me see. He's here. Here.
On the top of your screen. Okay, hold it up to your head. Hold your pen. Yeah, that's better. Okay,
Yeah.
that's a white. Did you say crayon?
Yeah, it's white. I have white and blue.
Uh-huh. And that's
Yeah.
what you use for quilting?
For yeah.
Or everything. Okay, I'll
Yeah.
show you what I have. Yeah, you can basically use whatever you want. Let's see. Okay. I'll show you what I like. You can also use a soft pencil if it washes out of your fabric. What brand does it say on that one? Does it say what brand?
This one, I think I got them from this one. I got it from maybe Joanne, or it came on my quilt for the so. Oh yeah.
Yeah, okay. So what I use, okay, and I do a lot of garment sewing, is I use, oh wait, I guess I have to pin myself. Hold on.
Oh yeah.
Hold on, let me unpin you. How do I unpin you? Oh, here we go. Okay, what I use a lot are these chalks, okay?
Oh, okay.
And then these are extremely fragile, but this is my favorite, but I had to have a friend in Japan send this to me. It's like for tailors. But my absolute favorite might be this, the Clover brand chocolate liner. Sometimes they come in a heart shape. And you don't have to buy this brand, but you know, there's a bunch of others. But it has a tiny little wheel on the top. And it makes a very fine mark.
Okay.
Yeah, and it has refills. So if you need to refill, let's see, what is this? Okay. So, and you don't have to buy this brand. It comes in, I think other companies make them now. But I love this. And a lot of garment sewers love this too. Let me see if I can show you. Oh, okay. Whoa. Okay, so let me show you what kind of mark it makes, because you can really get a fine mark. Okay, I don't know if you can see this, but do you see my fine mark there?
Yeah, it's just,
okay.
Yeah.
And then, okay, you have to hold it. And then, or I can make it darker.
Okay.
So I like to have the little wheel right there with jaggedy lines.
Okay.
So we can get accurate marks on that. So that's my favorite. And then on dark fabrics, this is my absolute favorite. It's a Clover and it's like a ballpoint pen. Okay. And the cool thing about this, I used to do a lot of Statical Stitching. I don't know if you know what that is. Let me bring you a sample so you can see. Okay. So Statical Stitching, I have to make a bunch of design marks, and then I stitch it with the white thread, and I use this. Okay.
Okay.
When you first draw on it, you can't see it. It's the weirdest thing. So I just drew some lines. Okay. You can't see it. And then when you wait a while, they show up. Okay. I don't think the camera's picking it up. Yeah, it shows up. And it stays. I have some, in fact, this bag, I started stitching it, and then I only went halfway through. Then I forgot about it for like probably a whole year and a half. And when I found it, it still had the marks in there.
Wow.
And you get rid of it with a steam iron.
Okay.
Years. So I love this, but it doesn't last long. You know, it uses up real good, real fast. But I hate this. I hate these guys. Okay, they drag it out, and on white fabric, I think it leaves some kind of an oily residue. In fact, I should probably toss this right now so I don't ever use it again. So you have to kind of test, and I haven't tested the children's washable markers, the felt tips, enough to really tell, but it's great when you need something and it's cheap, because you know felt tip markers run out. So in the classroom, I might use those, because I don't want to take these to class, you know, and lose them. So these are great markers. Oh, another thing, your pins, you really need to get glass head pins, okay? And the sharpest you can find. I think Dritz makes them, but I have another brand that we like. And sometimes they're called silk pins, and some are thinner and some are thicker. The reason why you really need to use a glass head pin is because you do a lot of pressing, and sometimes you have pins in there. If you use the plastic cheapy ones, it'll melt the plastic. So you want to use the glass head, okay? So in the olden days, we didn't have all these fancy products, you know, but and we didn't have all these specialty products, you know. It was like one needle you use forever, and you know, just a few feet and everything. So you can get carried away by buying all kinds of gadgets and everything, but you really need to buy the products that fit your needs. If you do quilting, you probably just need like quilting needles, right? Or just a regular sharp needle, depending on if you do the top quilting part. And you probably just need an iron and some marking pins, and that's about it. You might need a guide thing here so that you can do that.
Yeah.
Even one foot, you know.
Yeah.
Garment sewing is a whole different animal. You probably need a few more different tools, but you don't have to, you know, buy a gazillion tools. In a basic sewing machine works. We lost Jeanette. Okay, she's not here anymore. Okay, but that's it. Do you have any questions so far? I can't remember what I was going to talk about next session, but we will. It's probably about fabric, and if you have some fabric, or if you don't, you know, you don't have to, but it's good to sew along with me and make some test sewing, like maybe you have an old t-shirt fabric, you know, cut it up and then let's test it and see what happens. If you don't have a jersey or stretch needle or ballpoint needle, let's see what happens. And then I'll show you what kind of stitches you can use on it, okay?
Okay.
You kind of need to know what happens if it skips a stitch. You go, okay, that wasn't me, that was the needle.
Okay.
I had the wrong type. So find some different kinds of fabrics that you might be able to stitch on, and we'll see what happens, all right?
Okay.
And any other questions? I'll try to remember what I was.
The name of the book, please,
Oh,
is Sandra.
Yeah, Sandra Bettina is amazing. She taught sewing in San Francisco, and this woman is amazing. What she did, remember home sewing? All you had was a sewing machine, and they tell you how to sew garments this way. Well, she went to factories, garment sewing factories.
Mhm.
She interviewed and got information from all the people who do garment sewing, designers and everything. And she found out, that's how she found out certain fabrics, you got to do certain things.
Okay.
Nobody told you that before, So
Mhm.
she was really good and instrumental in doing all that. There is also another website. I think it's free to sign up, but it is called patternreview.com.
Pattern review.
Yeah, patternreview.com. And it tells you this is all member supported, meaning all the members give the information for this site. They what they do is you can find different kind of categories like sewing machine. People
Okay.
will say what kind of sewing machine, they will review sewing machines. So it's called
Okay.
Pattern Review, okay?
Okay.
dot
Yeah,
com.
yeah.
And I believe it's still free to sign up. And then let's say you wanted information on different type, like you're thinking about buying a serger, okay? You can,
Mhm.
find out what other people said about the sergers, what their reviews are.
Mhm.
Or maybe there was a clothing pattern you really wanted to try, but those independent clothing patterns cost like 16, 20 bucks. You don't want to, buy that and find out you didn't like it. So you read the reviews and some will say, well, this was fitting way too tiny at the waist, you need to adjust it there.
Mhm.
Or they'll say, the instructions were too hard, or it was
Mhm.
missing the vital instruction, or what kind of fabric was the best for it. So it's a great site. Also, the American Sewing Guild has neighborhood group chapters. I
Mhm.
don't know what part of town you live in. I think there might be a chapter there, but I think,
I live in Sandy Springs.
oh, you live in Sandy Springs. Okay, I
Yes.
think there should be a couple. Also, it's called American Sewing Guild. And if you go to the national chapter, um, you should be able to find Atlanta, and then they list the neighborhood groups. Now, the only problem with the Atlanta Sewing Guild is there is a membership fee. I think it's $40 or $50 a year. So, but they will open the the fabric sale I was telling you about to
Mhm.
the public, okay? Because they
Mhm.
raise money to support their workshops and programs. It is called American Sewing Guild and Atlanta chapter, and then they have
Okay.
neighborhood.
Making,
Huh?
you say is called making what?
American.
Oh, American.
Let me write this down. I think it's the national website is ASG.com. I don't know what the Atlanta website is called, but Atlanta website does have a website, okay? So it's can you see that? ASG.com.
ASG.com. Okay.
Then you look for the Atlanta chapters.
Okay.
There's also, you're a quilter, right?
If I'm who?
You are a quilter? You do quilting, right?
Yeah, I'm doing quilting.
There's a quilting guild, right? There's several quilting guilds, East Cobb quilters and all that. You know what you might want to do is go to Fiber Arts Alliance. What did I tell you? Oh, it's asg.org. I'm sorry, I gave you the wrong address.
Okay.
Okay, it's asg.org, O-R-G.
Org. Okay.
Okay. And then if you go to this website, hold on. Now, this website is free, okay? It's Fiber Arts Alliance, one word, .org.
Fiber Arts Alliance.
.org. If you go here, they have all the groups listed that are part of this organization. So the knitters will be there, the quilters should be there, sewing groups should be there, and they have workshops and things like that. It's good to sign up to their website, okay?
Mhm.
I mean, for their email, okay? So these are all groups that you can exchange information and find out about all kinds of stuff, all right?
Okay. I hope they're doing everything online because I'm not going places to places this
Yeah.
time because
Yeah.
of the pandemic.
Yeah, the only thing is the fabric sale
Okay.
is it's going to have to be, you know, at the place.
Mhm.
But if you wear a mask, you should be okay. I don't know where they're doing it at this year. But everything else is basically online.
Mhm.
Yeah. So any questions so far? We will see you next week, maybe.
Okay. Thank you so much for the
If you-
class.
Oh, you're welcome. And I know it's a lot of information, but nowadays we just have so many more options and so many things to work with, so many different materials to work with. So it's a lot of information, you know, to absorb. Okay, so we
You
will
will
see.
just two of us?
You know what? I think a lot of people don't know about this. So if you have friends, you can tell them and they can join next week if they want. They can always watch this on
Okay.
YouTube on the
Okay.
what was that site called?
Okay.
Fulton County Senior Services site on YouTube, and then they can
Yeah.
join us next week if they want.
Oh, you on the in YouTube too?
Yeah, it's called, let me write this down. All right. You need to go to YouTube and look for Fulton County Senior Services channel is what they told me. Okay,
Seniors channel.
here we go. Can you see that? Oh,
Oh,
Fulton
okay.
County
Okay.
Senior Services channel.
Okay.
I haven't been there, so I don't really know how you find it.
I'm gonna check it. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you just put it in YouTube. So if you go to youtube.com and in the search bar, you just put
Yeah.
in Fulton County Senior Services, you will see the logo and you just
Okay.
click on it. Mhm.
Oh,
Okay,
cool.
thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Okay,
Mhm.
so tell your friends and they can join us, you know, and because the more information you know, the more success you're going to have using your sewing machine. Okay.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
you are very
Thank you.
welcome. We will see you next
Okay.
week. Okay, same
See you
time.
next week. Okay, thank you.
Right. Goodbye.